Hi, this is Sean Wallace with Centric Consulting. I wanted to take a few minutes to help you get started in creating your own repository in GitHub and downloading the supplied codebase and making sure that everything is working properly. On the screen you should see a list of the steps we're going to need to go through to make sure that all of our code is set up properly and it's ready to work against. The first thing we want to do is to create a new repository in GitHub to hold the source code that we're going to modify as part of the course. So what we're going to do is we're going to open our web browser and we're going to navigate to our own account in GitHub. Now if you don't already have a GitHub account, all you'll need to do is register for that at this time. What we're going to do is we're going to click on a repositories tab and we're going to click new. I'm going to create a repository of a name that's appropriate for the course. For instructional purposes, I'm going to use MIS4200-Sean. So when I create this repository, I'll be taken to a screen and it'll show me the steps that I need to get the repository that exists in GitHub, which is a cloud-based service, to my local machine so that I can work on it. Right now, there is no code in the system whatsoever. So there are multiple techniques that we can use to perform what is called a clone of this source code repository. What we're going to do is we're going to use the desktop application that we should have installed as a prerequisite for this course. So I click Setup in Desktop, and what's going to happen is that the GitHub for Windows application is going to start, and it's going to ask me where I want to put my source control. And I'm going to select the default location of my local profile document / GitHub directory. Now it's bringing down all of those changes. Now right now we don't have any changes in the source code whatsoever. So what I can do is I can right click my repository in GitHub for Windows, click Open and Explore, and I can see that there are no changes, there is no code in this system whatsoever. So what we need to do right now is we need to make a copy of the code that's been supplied to us as a quick start for this course and import it into this directory. The next thing that we're going to need to do is download a copy of the supplied code base from GitHub, download it locally as a zip file, and extract those files. So what we need to do is go to our web browser again, and we're going to navigate to github.com/michaelglass and the MIS4200-master repository. In the lower right hand area of the screen, there should be a download zip file, a download zip button. We click that guy and we're going to download that code. Now it shouldn't take very long. There's not a whole lot of code in the system, just enough to get us started. What we can do is we can take that download, drag it to some location that we know local on our system, and then we can extract all of those files locally. We can look in this application, now we can look in this directory and see the local files that have now been downloaded that are part of the source control repository. The next step in our process is to take that code that we just downloaded from github.com to import it into our local repository and commit it to our local repository. So what we want to do now is open GitHub for Windows. Make sure that we've selected our local repository. For me, it's MIS4200-Sean. We can right-click that repository, click Open and Explore, and to get out of the way, we'll just minimize GitHub for Windows here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to copy the files from the master code, the master source that we just downloaded. We're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it into our local repository. Now, if this worked properly, what I can do is if I go to GitHub for Windows, click on my repository, I should see that there are a bunch of new files in my repository. What we're going to do now is we're going to commit those files to our local repository. So I've committed them locally. There are no local changes, but we now notice, because we have a publish button, that we have local changes that have not been committed to github.com. And we can verify this by going to our local repository in GitHub and verifying that it still has a default message that tells me how to download this repository onto my local machine, clone it to my local machine, then start working with it. Our next step is to build and run the application to ensure that everything is working properly. So what we can do is we can go into our local repository, we can double click on the solution file, and it should start Visual Studio 2015. You should already have an instance of Visual Studio 15 installed onto your development machine here. It's going to give us, show us a dialog telling us, hey, you just downloaded some code off the internet. That might not be a good idea, but we know it's from a trusted source. We're going to go on and click OK. Then, to make sure that everything is working properly, we're going to go on and build our system. There's two ways to build. I can click on the build button or the build menu and click build solution, or I can just simply hit the F6 key on my keyboard. So we're going to build the solution, and what it's going to do is it's going to initially it's going to download any packages that it needs to run properly from NuGet. Then it's going to compile the application together, and if we have a build successful message like we do right now, then we know that our application works. Now we can run our application by clicking the little run button here, or we can actually hit the F5 key on our keyboard. It will compile the application, it will start a web server, you will open a browser, and then navigate to your application. And now we know that our application at least will start on the system. In order to verify that our system is working properly, we don't just need to run the application to make sure that the web browser comes up, but what we also have to do is we have to exercise the database connection of our system, of our little application here, to make sure that we can register, that we can authenticate on the site. And that means that our database is working properly. So we've got our application running. We can click register, and we can enter an email address. It doesn't matter what email address you enter, it just matters that it looks like an email address. So I'm going to register as me@company.com, and I'll have to enter and verify a password. Now I know that I can register on this system. So just to test it, I'm going to log off and I'm going to log back in. So now I know that my system is operating properly. The last thing we need to do is take the code that we've imported from our supplied code base that we have committed to a local repository, and take that repository and sync it up with our GitHub repository at github.com. So what we do is we'll open GitHub for Windows, and we'll simply click the publish button. Now what that publish button is going to do, it's going to take the local code changes that I have, and it's going to push those changes up to the github.com servers. I can see that that process has completed. I can verify that it worked by going to github.com, clicking on my repository that I created, and I can see that no longer the default messages are displayed, and actually the code that we have uploaded into our system, or into our GitHub repository, is now there. Now I can work as normal, committing locally and then pushing changes to my server as new features are developed and new work has been done or bugs have been fixed. So hopefully that gives you a quick understanding of the 5 or 6 things that we need to do to get the system working. If you make a mistake, that's okay. You can delete your local repository, you can delete your local code, and you can do it again until you get everything working and everything's working properly. If you do have any questions, please contact your instructor, and they'll know how to contact us at any point throughout this process. Thank you.